Hello, everybody, and welcome back. My name is Don Arleth, and it's time for World Talks here on TVP World. Russia's relentless missile war against Ukraine has turned the Patriot PAC-3 into the world's most sought-after air defense missile and the only proven defense against ballistic threats. At the NATO summit in July, U.S. President Donald Trump made a stunning announcement in Turkey. Ukraine would be allowed to produce the PAC-3 missiles under license, joining a tiny group of countries with that capability. But just days later, the deal was suddenly thrown into doubt. With the war against Iran draining U.S. stockpiles and production stuck at just 60 to 65 missiles per month, Washington may not be willing to share the technology after all. So if America can't supply enough PAC-3s and Ukraine can't build them, what happens next? Joining us to discuss is geopolitical analyst, retired U.S. Army counterintelligence officer, David DeBatto. Hello, David. Great to see you, and thanks for joining us this evening.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Yes. Now, Donald Trump said that talks are still ongoing, adding that the U.S. must be very careful about letting somebody build them, saying that eventually a country could turn against the United States, hence his apprehension for allowing Ukrainians to produce the PAC-3s. What risks would allowing Ukraine to produce the PAC-3s pose to the United States, or is this just political rhetoric?
You know, as I've said many, many times, including on this program, it's really hard or impossible to tell why Donald Trump says what he says. At the time he said that, I do believe, in his mind at least, that it posed a threat, a national security threat to the United States to have Ukraine licensed to build Patriot missile systems. However, I thought immediately when I read that what about the deal that he just made with Saudi Arabia to give them nuclear technology, the secrets to our nuclear technology? I would think that would pose a far greater national security threat, not just to us, but to the entire region. We just went to war in Iran to try to keep them from weaponizing nuclear energy. And he gave the same, or he's giving that technology to Saudi Arabia. So to try to answer your question, I think he did think it would be a danger to the United States, but it also baffles me because it would make the United States a great deal of money. And President Trump, if anything, is about making deals to make money. At least two American contractors would have made out very, very well if this deal had gone through.
Right. Well, hopefully they are continuing to talk, and that decision isn't quite final yet. But the announcement that the administration is considering the idea came quite as a shock. Only Japan and Germany are allowed to produce the PAC-3, yet neither of them churns out any significant numbers. Poland is allowed to build certain components. It was relatively recently granted that capability. If Ukraine was granted permission, how soon do you think it could actually produce the PAC-3s? And how long would it take them to bring it to scale to make a difference here in this war and to protect our Ukrainian cities?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. If, in fact, they did sign the deal, if President Trump and the Trump administration actually went through and agreed to this deal, once they actually had permission to do that, just like they've done with everything else since the full-scale war, I think it would be very, very soon. How soon? A matter of months. Certainly sooner than it's taken American factories, American defense contractors to push through to turn out Patriot missile systems. So from the day the ink was dry on the agreement, as it were, I don't know for sure, but it would be a relatively short period of time. They have the infrastructure. They certainly have the personnel and the motivation to do that. So take how long it takes, or figure out how long it takes in America to do this, and just cut that by 2 or 3 times. And I believe that's how long it would take for Ukraine to start producing and deploying Patriot missile systems.
Well, strangely, if we look over at Germany, I mean, Germany has the permission, has the ability to license the complete PAC-3, but it doesn't really produce these missiles. I think if it does, it's like a handful of them per year at best. Germany could could significantly change the stockpiles. You know, if we're looking at, what is it, 60 to 65 of these interceptors are made in the United States per month. It seems like NATO would be interested to boost this capability. What about Germany boosting production?
Well, I think the actual number on how fast or slow it takes to produce Patriots is actually a lot slower than that. But be that as it may, I believe, as with many, many things going on in Germany over the last few years, they still have to fight the public. The German public, for the most part, is still not very enthusiastic about supporting a greatly increased defense budget, a greatly expanded Bundeswehr. They have to tread very, very carefully, meaning the German government. So if they were to start mass producing Patriot missile systems and then selling them or giving them to Ukraine, I think there would be quite a pushback, perhaps, from the German public. So I think that is what's going on there.
Well, with the United States as well, I mean, if stockpiles are indeed as low as they seem, we don't know exactly how large or how small they really, really are. But with the wars in Iran draining stockpiles massively, of course, so many PAC-3s have been transferred to Ukraine. The United States needs to probably increase its production capability, should it not?
Oh, absolutely. And some of the reporting that I've read recently talks about that exact point. Some figures that I've read say that up to 67% of Patriot missiles have been expended. That's almost catastrophic. But here's the thing. We are not, or at least the Trump administration was not talking about selling or giving existing stocks of Patriot missiles to Ukraine. They were merely talking about allowing them to have the license to produce Patriot missile systems, because I've had this discussion over the last few days, because I had the same question. It would not reduce the stockpiles of American Patriot missiles, which we so desperately need. So that should not at least figure into that equation whatsoever. It might have in President Trump's mind, but in reality, that wouldn't affect the Patriot missile stockpile in this country.
Mm-hmm. Well, Ukraine has touted earlier that Firepoint is working on a ballistic interceptor for the fraction of the cost of Patriots. Do you share this assessment that they're on the brink of doing so potentially by the end of the year? And if that's true, why would Ukraine even want to set up production for the very complicated and expensive missiles that are PAC-3 Patriots instead of concentrating their efforts on the domestic solution?
Well, look, I believe that Ukraine is trying to cover all their bases. And I agree with the first part of what you just said. Yes, I think they are very close to producing a Patriot-like missile system. And they're not the only ones. There are several nations in Europe, especially Northern Europe, like Sweden, that are trying to do the same thing, as well as Germany. I believe that there will be more than at least one or more nations in their defense industry that will be able to produce weapons that are very similar in quality and distance as the Patriot missile systems. And again, why would Ukraine worry so much or try to get the Patriots from the United States? Because it's a proven system. Right now, it is the only proven system that can successfully hit and knock down the Russian ballistic missiles that are coming at Iraq every single day and night. So in case those other defense contractors and nations are not able to produce another Patriot-like system, they have to talk to the United States about supplying Patriot missiles. And I think they've gone about it very, very cleverly in playing up to President Trump and getting in his good graces, which has not been an easy task for President Zelensky.
Right. It was looking quite optimistic a little earlier when President Zelensky was president in the United States. But then, of course, as the week went on and we heard President Trump have his doubts, well, the optimism, I guess, sank from there. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but from a secrecy and security standpoint, would it be prudent to allow Ukraine to produce these missiles? Or is there a legitimate threat that those secrets could fall into the wrong hands?
Look, there's always a possibility that secrets like this can fall into the wrong hands. And it's no secret that Ukraine has struggled with its own security lapses within its own security apparatus. There's been no shortage of investigations and arrests of high-profile intelligence officers and law enforcement officers who have leaked information to Russia. But you can say that about any ally. And I think that we owe a great debt to Ukraine for holding off and beating back the Russian military. So if any nation, in my opinion, deserved the right now to make Patriot missiles, it would be Ukraine. And let me just quickly add one thing. People are asking, well, why now? After all this time that America cut off aid to Ukraine, are they doing this? I think there's been a great push in the Congress, the U.S. Congress, who has always supported Ukraine because of Senator Lindsey Graham's death. He was a staunch supporter of Ukraine, and I think his death has motivated many in the U.S. Congress to go against President Trump, who does still want to cut off aid to Ukraine for the most part. And let's just hope that that goodwill from Senator Graham carries through a little longer with the Congress so this deal can be finalized.
Certainly. And now, what do you think is the best solution for this pickle that Ukraine now finds itself in? No Patriots available for purchase through the Pearl program. The U.S. stock's dwindling, and there's no other defense other than the PAC-3s against ballistic missiles. What should Ukraine be seeking or doing at this point in time?
They are doing everything that they should and can be doing. Look, Russia's not going to be dragged to any negotiating tables right now. In fact, it's like a cornered animal. They are striking out even more than before. I'm sure, and I know you've reported on the horrendous attacks, the ballistic missile attacks, drone attacks, and so forth on Kyiv and other Ukrainian cities, especially in the Donbass and eastern Ukraine. What Ukraine has been doing and what they're going to do to make up for their lack of Patriot missiles and other interceptors is to bomb the heck out of Russia with their drones. They're going to increase their attacks on the Russian energy infrastructure. They're going to increase the pain that the average Russian citizen is going to suffer every day, such as what is going on with wild berries. They're going to try to strangle them so the Russian people are not going to rise up a la the 1917, but they are going to make a big stink. They're going to add their voice to the oligarchs who are also getting a little fed up with Putin. And no, that's not going to stop the ballistic missiles falling on Kiev, but it's certainly going to give the Russian military and intelligence services a lot to think about, such as, are we going to continue this insanity? They are actually destroying our country now. It's not just us pulverizing them. We're getting it, and we don't like it. So I think Ukraine is absolutely following the correct strategy. Let's see if it works.
Yes, let's hope those tides have indeed turned. David DeBatto, geopolitical analyst and retired U.S. Army counterintelligence officer, thank you so much for joining us on World Talks.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And that concludes this edition of World Talks. Thanks for joining us, and stay with us for more here on TVP World.